Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Coach Peter is a highly acclaimed fitness trainer and nutritionist with over 20 years of experience. A multi award winning professional, he has been voted one of the top trainers in the country. With a global reach, Coach Peter has guided thousands of individuals on their fitness and nutrition journeys. His passion for the carnivore lifestyle, which he discovered 3 years ago, led him to specialize in coaching individuals on this unique approach to human nutrition. Recognizing the need for tailored guidance, Coach Peter assembled a team to launch Carnivore Coach International, a platform dedicated to equipping coaches with the knowledge and networking opportunities to support clients with specific needs. He's also the head of the world's largest carnivore Facebook group with more than 500,000 members. Wow. You can find him on Instagram at Carnivore Coach Peter. Coach Peter, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Great to be here, Casey. Great to be here. I didn't realize you've done lots of these.
By the time this episode drops, we will have already celebrated our 5th-year anniversary of doing podcasts. I started in October of 2020. We had just formed our business, so I didn't have as many clients as we were just getting started. So I had a little bit more time, and we just started releasing episodes when we got going every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I've been able to keep it up for 5 years. So if you're stubborn enough, I suppose you can kind of stick with stuff. And at the moment we have quite a few episodes. So thank you for the compliment. And yeah, it's been a fun journey. I get to meet people all over the world like yourself and have amazing conversations. Pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. I think you're coming up to maybe 900 or
getting there.
Awesome. Yep. Good for you.
Thanks, man.
That's quite the accomplishment.
Thanks. It's been a lot of fun. I've equally enjoyed, interviewing some of the greats in our space, the Sean Bakers, Dr. Chafees, and all those people, but also to find everyday people, who are trying different things. Like I found you through Brad Bache's page. He's not exactly a nobody, but he does create content that's not exactly carnivore. And he went on a carnivore journey and hired you as a trainer and a coach. And I thought that was fabulous that you guys included that in his videos. And it's been fun, again, to talk to the researchers, the scientists, the doctors, but also everyday people that are, trying this journey and discovering lots of health and healing like you and I have as well.
Well, I love what you're doing. So thank you for everything you're doing in this space as well.
Well, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate the kind words. And you're calling in from Toronto, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm actually in Niagara, Canada. So right on the border of Buffalo. So I can see Buffalo from my house.
Okay, got it. Is it closer to being a Buffalo Sabres fan, or do you have to be a Maple Leafs fan where you are?
That's a good question. Well, I have to say Maple Leafs because it's the law here to be living in Ontario. But we're big into the Buffalo Bills here actually for football. So
okay, got it. There you go. Yeah. Okay, well, people don't like this joke that you're never supposed to tell somebody from Toronto. But I'll just tell it here. Toronto is the only city in the world where the Leafs fall in the spring. Ouch.
We deserve that. We deserve that.
Dr. Stu Phillips, if you're listening, I apologize. I live in the Salt Lake area, and so this year we acquired an NHL hockey team from Arizona. Arizona came over, and now we have an NHL team, and I've worshipped hockey my entire life. And so to be able to go to NHL games and see these amazing players, it's really, really cool. But it's cool that you guys root for the Bills as well. Sounds very regional to the area. I've also learned with consuming all of the hockey content that I've consumed this year in particular, I've learned that when I just said Toronto, I'm saying it wrong. Toronto should be pronounced in somewhere between 2 and 2.5 syllables. It's way faster. It's
Toronto.
like Toronto. Yeah, exactly.
Toronto.
Yeah, way faster than I've been pronouncing it for all these years. Enough about the sports talk. Let's talk about your own personal journey. You have, relatively recently found a carnivore diet, and I realize that most people who find the diet find it because they've gone through some form of suffering, difficulty, that sort of thing. So tell us about your personal journey through health and fitness, how it related to what you were doing personally as a trainer, and how you eventually found a carnivore diet.
Yeah, for sure. Well, now that we brought up Toronto, Jordan Peterson's he was one of the professors here at University of Toronto. And he was actually one of our professors when I was going to school in that area, and we were in that circle. But this was before I knew he was doing the whole carnivore thing. But yeah, been a fitness trainer and nutritionist for about 20 years now. And I did quite well with it. And my own personal health journey, I found that as long as I was eating that balanced diet, my health was doing okay. But lifelong struggle with sugar addiction. So I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. But it was so easy to hide it because I was very active being a fitness trainer. So I was just able to burn it off. I'd work out for 2 or 3 hours a day, not a problem. And then when you eat like that, you have those highs and lows. You know what I mean? So you go on those carb highs and then lows, carb highs and lows. And what helped me was things like doing the fasting, doing things like the green juices. And if you scroll down on my Instagram page, Carnivore Coach Peter, you might even see some of my juices, my fridge full of kale and everything. But that was a bit of my story for most of my time as a trainer for many years. And then COVID happened, and then that really impacted my business. Obviously, I'm sure it did with many people in the health space, especially if you work with people one on one. And I during that time, I got to reflect a little bit and see, okay, am I really healthy? Yeah, I might look fit and slim, but the fact that I'm struggling with sugar addiction and that I have these highs and lows, both emotionally and in my energy, my clients must be struggling as well. And then I was listening to one of the podcasts with Jordan Peterson because I was familiar with his carnivore diet and knowing Michaela in the space as well. And he said something very interesting in this interview he was doing. And at first, when I knew he was doing carnivore diet, I thought, okay, he must have a very, very severe food allergy. Like that was my assumption. But during this interview, he said this. He said at one point, I don't remember who he was talking to, but it might have been Joe Rogan or another podcaster. But he said at one point he was having meat and greens. And I thought, okay, that the personal nutritionist in me was like, okay, well, at least he's getting that fiber, those nutrients, those all the iron in those greens. But what he said blew me away. What he said next, he said, it wasn't until I cut out the greens that I started to feel better. And I tell you, I think I was drinking the green smoothie at the time. I just about spit it out. I was like, what? What did he just say? And that's where it kind of went down the road of learning about carnivore and about plant toxins and all those things. But yeah, that was the beginning of my journey.
Wow, that's amazing. And very similar to my first reaction to the carnivore diet was a Joe Rogan, where he hosted Sean Baker for the first time, and him saying that he was super healthy, just eating ribeyes, and he wasn't even like checking blood work. He just felt really good just eating only meat. I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. How long did it take you to wrap your brain around that? That's a really difficult thing when for sure that green smoothie was the healthiest and best thing that you were
Oh
eating.
yeah.
For sure. Like, there's no doubt that's a healthy thing. I used to do that too. Like, how long did it take you to wrap your brain around the idea that maybe that is actually actively causing harm?
Yeah, that took a lot of me to wrap my head around. That was the seed that was planted. And then over that year, there were little things like, okay, am I getting enough protein? Is fiber actually necessary? You really have to be humble enough to take a step back and look at your life and be like, are you really thriving? And in order for me to thrive, usually it took me to do fasting, which was ironic. It's like it wasn't until I wouldn't eat, or when I was doing the juicing, which it was a lot of work. Like I joke about this, I have triceps not from doing exercise, but from all that juice I was making. And I did feel really good for a little bit of time. Then I'd have the crash outs again. And so over that past year, I had some clients I was working with, and they told me they were carnivore. So these little seeds were being planted, and the clients that were doing carnivore, they started to feel better. They started to heal faster. My background is in injury rehabilitation, mostly with fitness, the more of the injury side, like physiotherapy, that kind of thing. And they were telling me these testimonies, and that's when I started to really dive in because you're probably science mind like me. It's like it has to make sense. You have to. It can't. The testimonies are good, but you really want to learn about why it works, right? The reasoning why. And that's when I dove in even deeper, and I thought, okay, best to just try it on myself. And that's when I started to feel better.
Wow, that's amazing. As you look back also with your own health, what other things did you either realize or not realize that you were dealing with at the time, health wise, mentally, emotionally? How were those things affected in your own life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I I had depression and anxiety as long as I can remember. I as a kid, my parents took me to many psychologists. I think I remember at least a dozen. My parents were like, "What is wrong with this kid?" I had these like I had these. I'd be really happy and really sad, and I was just used to it. Like my lifestyle revolved around my emotions, and even exercising was a big part of keeping myself mentally sane. But when I adjusted to carnivore, which wasn't great, by the way, and I can go more in details with that because that transition was terrible. But when I did finally adjust, I was like, whoa, I feel normal. Like, is this what people feel like? Like, you don't have to have like suicidal thoughts every day. You don't have to be hyper and like super anxious every day. Because I did have that. I remember at one point, I think a month or two into carnivore, and I struggled a lot with depression. And I remember one day, I know this sounds silly, but that day I was like, wait, this is weird. Like I did not think about killing myself today. Like I didn't really want to kill myself, but like just those thoughts, like people who have had um, those periods of time where they have those mental lows, they could feel, they could see what I mean. But I was like, that's strange. I was like, I actually feel normal. I actually am excited about today. I am excited about my future. Like I remember thinking about, I just got to get through today, just get through today and this year. And now I'm thinking about what kind of grandfather I want to be. Like I'm forward thinking. I want to live till I'm like at least 120. I want to be the cool great grandfather. So it's very cool that the biggest benefit to me was the mental clarity, the emotional healing, but the physical is just a bonus. Like I getting shredded and losing body fat, gaining muscle, all that good stuff too.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's striking how often you hear that story, and it's always like in hindsight, it's like you don't realize that it's happening. For me, it was 2 weeks in, and it's like, wow, I guess I was anxious before because I don't feel anxious now. I didn't know I was dealing with that. It's always
Yeah,
kind of that hindsight type of thing. And you know what it's like to be in the fitness and nutrition space for a very long time, almost 2 decades, like you said, and in that time there's lots of learning and unlearning and changing your mind about certain things. Once you go on this diet yourself, you really can't unsee the benefits for yourself. But you were training other people. You'd maybe been telling them that they should be juicing as well. Like,
yeah,
was it difficult for you to transform your not only thinking about things, but also the coaching that you were delivering to your clients at the time?
definitely. That was hard. It was almost like coming out of the closet, with this new idea because people knew me. Like my nickname was Captain Vegetable. Like I've done countless seminars on the benefits of green smoothies. I actually would bring my Vitamix and be like, "This is how to make the perfect green smoothie." But before I went to public on with the carnivore lifestyle, I had to test on myself, and that's when I discovered the importance of proper transitioning and also brought in why we the importance of good coaching, which and you coach people like it's not coaching does help for many different reasons. Like it could help for the emotional and the physical, many and the social, many different aspects to this lifestyle. But when I did decide to come into the spotlight on carnivore, that was difficult because I had people who trained under me, worked with me, doctors, professionals who trusted me for years, and then we had to cut ties because they were like, Peter, you're promoting a cancer causing diet, diabetic causing diet. But I had already made up my mind. I had done the research. I dove deep. I saw the benefits of myself and some other people I was experimenting with. I just, although that was hard to have that pushback, I just kept forward because I knew, like, I just knew that it was the right thing.
Yeah, got it. Did you ever tell people like as Captain Vegetable, you're now saving the vegetables, you're no longer killing the broccoli and the kale, and that's where the hero in the cape comes in, is you're like actually saving the vegetables?
Yeah, well, exactly. Like, I just did a post about my plants. I'm like, plants are meant to be your friends, not to be eaten.
Perfect. Yeah, very noble. I love it. That's great. Okay, you mentioned the transition, and we'll talk about how you kind of coach people on the transition now. I think that's really important. But tell us about yours personally. You mentioned that it didn't go that great. Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, I wanted to share that because that's a big part of it. This is where the coaching comes in. When I had made the mind about, okay, this makes sense, like carbohydrates are not essential. You learn about all the science things, the gluconeogenesis and the truths about cholesterol, all those things. Once I had made up my mind, I got so excited, Casey. I was like, okay, today's gonna be my first carnivore meal. I was so dumb. I got a couple pounds of bacon and I cooked it. I got a dozen eggs because this is what I was seeing people eating, right? I'm just gonna, eat this great meal, and so I cooked the eggs in the bacon grease. I didn't drain anything because this is what people do. And I remember I had to work later that night, and I was curled up on the floor. I was like, oh, what have I done to myself? I was in so much pain. I was like, but although I was hurting, I had already made up my mind not to give up. And that's when I'm like, okay, what did I do wrong? Try it again tomorrow. Electrolyte issues, obviously, energy issues, because remember, I was very vegetable heavy. So my transition took a little bit more time. But I was so determined not to stop because I was sure this was the right diet. And I still am after coaching hundreds of people on this lifestyle now. And so that's when I learned the importance of transitioning slowly, the importance of things like electrolytes at the beginning, how to adjust your fat and protein intake over time. But yeah, that was a big part of it for sure.
Yeah, gotcha. Just too quick. Now, did you transfer from Captain Vegetable directly onto carnivore? Or were you, as you were learning about carnivore, was there already like an increase in animal proteins and fats? Like how big of a drastic jump did you take?
Oh, it was instant, which was obviously wrong. But during that time, because I struggled so much, I failed, if you will, on the carnivore diet several times. So several times I went back to sugar, I went back to the carbohydrates. Dairy Queen would be calling my name, and I would go there. Those sugar addiction behaviors were so strong, and but I kept on going every day. I was like, okay, I failed. I'm going to try again tomorrow. And then I went to during that time, I almost perfected it. I noticed things like something when those of you who have struggled with addiction know what I mean. Like the smallest thing can trigger you. And so even when I was having a steak, even just the sweetness of putting pepper on my steak would trigger my sugar addiction. And then I'd be binging again. So that's why going full, like cutting out plants completely for that a good portion of time was very crucial for me because I could feel it in my brain, almost like that dopamine kick. And then your brain shuts down. Like you don't think about anything else except something sweet, getting the ice cream, getting this. And so after the time of healing, then I started experimenting by bringing foods back because I have some young kids and I like to treat myself with them. And then I remember having a little bit of dark chocolate with some of my girls. And I was like, you know what? I don't feel like I want more. I feel like I'm content by just having this dark chocolate, let it sit in my mouth. And that's when I realized, okay, my body's healing, my brain is healing.
Wow. Okay. The sweetness of pepper. That is insane and very
Yeah.
true. Like once you change your way of eating and step away from a lot of those sweet tastes, it's crazy. Like you bite into a carrot or something, you're like, wow, that is crazy sweet. Um,
Yeah.
my latest carnivore fail has been like if I don't have the discipline when I'm at the store, I'll buy a container of cashews that are salted, and I just, man, like it's late at night and I want a little bite. And so I have a little bite and then I have more and then I have more and then I have more. And cashews, salted cashews taste really sweet to me. And I'll look down and see that I've leveled like half of this like 3 pound container all in once. It's like, what are you doing, stupid? And I found that my addictive behavior is at the store. If I can walk past them at the store and not bring them home, I'm fine. I don't miss them. But if there's a crack, even this long, like 6.5 years on carnivore, if there's a crack in my determination, I grab the thing thinking it's going to last several weeks. It lasts like 3 days. I've leveled the whole thing, and my digestion sucks. I feel terrible. So it's so stupid.
Well, it lasts you 3 days. It probably wouldn't last me 3 days. Probably maybe 1 or 2 days
Oh
if
my
I
gosh.
did
Dude,
that.
the addiction stuff is real, man. It is a serious thing for a lot of people. And, I was asked recently, like, so you never eat cake, you never eat treats. And I asked the person, like, well, can you have a little bit of that stuff and put it away and not think about it? And it was like, yeah, of course I can. I'm like, well, that's great for you. I can't do that. And a lot of sugar addicts cannot do that. And they find that being 100% is a lot easier than trying to be moderate and dabble in some of these things.
Yeah, exactly. And we saw the importance so much with the food addiction. We actually have in our certification program, our carnivore certification program, we actually have a whole module dedicated to this. And we had Dr. Sarah Zaldivar come in and teach this. She has lots of experience with at the University of Florida and doing research with food addiction and dopamine. And it's a big part of it, especially when you're coaching people, because it doesn't matter what you say to your clients. If they have a food addiction behavior, that's a whole different ballgame because any information you tell them doesn't matter. You really have to work with the client and understand that it is a sickness, and transferring to a sober meal plan is a whole something that's going to take a lot of patience and a lot of coaching to do.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. And you couldn't have picked anybody better to teach that part of the course. She's wonderful and really, really good with that kind of stuff. And so I realized
Yeah.
also there's a difference between the clients you already had that maybe were or were not looking for a carnivore diet versus people that seek us out for carnivore coaching. Those are people that are generally like on board. They want to try this, they want to do it the right way, and there's a difference in how you bring things up and coach things. So on the first part of things, what was it like to know the information? And now you've got your existing clients that, again, may or may not know or have any desire to do a carnivore diet. How were you able to share your information in a way that kept things open with them and kept it so you could continue working with them and talking with them?
That was good. My approach was always very conservative. I think that's the word. Um, I would just say, okay, you know what? Let's just get your protein up. Let's just focus on protein, because if you get the client to have enough protein for most of the days, it doesn't have to be every day. But if you get them to have enough protein, a lot of times the sugar diminishes, and then you can slowly transition them. But I do want to mention, if you don't mind me saying, like when I was coaching, when I was excited and I started coaching people on the carnivore diet, I thought everything was going to go great with them. I thought, okay, I'm just going to transition them, and then everything will be, hunky dory. And it wasn't. There was a lot of underlying issues in coaching, a lot of stuff I didn't learn yet. And this was part of the reason why we created the course for coaches, is that you can't just coach every client the same way. Like, different clients are going to have different issues. So things that were coming up with the clients were like, some of them were having, that's the sugar addiction. Some of them were having oxalate dumping. Some of them, the one thing I want to mention, the one thing that made me want to quit as a carnivore coach, like honestly, I was like, I'm done because I don't understand this, was histamine intolerance. Because if you have a client that has histamine intolerance, something like leftover meat or bone broth can just about send them to the hospital. So that's when I realized I had a lot to learn. So during that time, I did little challenges here and there, like I did like fat loss challenges. And then when I learned more about a specific topic, that's when I did a group coaching. Then I did a group coaching for carnivore of food addiction, and I did group coaching for histamine intolerance. So during that time, I realized I had a lot to learn in this space. So I know you have a background with coaching as well. Not sure how much they've gone into those details, but I was hoping everything would go perfect with each client, but it showed me the importance of individual coaching for each person.
Yeah, got it. So anybody that's watching or listening right now, if you want to see this in action, go ahead and go over to the Butcher Wizard channel on YouTube and find the videos of Brad Bache, again, the Butcher Wizard, doing his 30-day carnivore experiment. And I'm so glad you guys recorded this and he included them in these videos. So, 10, 15-minute clips of what coaching actually looks like, because it might be very different than what most people think it is. Most people think that we as coaches are basically just like telling you what to do, and you have to go out and do it. And that's not at all what it's like. It's a lot more like listening. It's a lot more nuance. It's a lot more working with people where they are. And there's a lot of nuance in that. And so, yeah, maybe we could talk about, maybe Brad in particular, or most of the people that you coach, on some of the pitfalls that people run into when they get to the carnivore diet. Obviously, you've mentioned some already, but maybe we can dig into a little bit better detail. What does it look like in particular when somebody wants to try this, as far as like transitioning more slowly so that they don't have the same experience that you did when you switched over rather quickly?
Yeah, it's a great question. There are people who transition great, so to speak. And the thing is, even if you do transition smoothly, but if you do it too fast, the issues might come later on. And that's when even more precise coaching can come in. But the biggest issue is like, well, I shouldn't say issue. The most important thing is, depending on how carb heavy you are, will determine how much fat you can have. So I like to use the 200 rule. So 200 grams is a good place to start of managing your carbs and your fat. So for instance, if someone's fat is around 20 and their carbohydrates are about 180, you can slowly adjust that. So you can bring the carbohydrates down from 180 grams per day to about 160, and then you could bring the fat up from 20 to 30. So that's an example. For the average person, I would recommend that they transition for at least 5 weeks. And during that time, like I do tell people, they think I'm crazy. I'm like, I want people tell me, I want to start the carnivore diet. I'm ready to start today. And I'm telling them to have carbohydrates. I'm actually telling them to, because I've seen the long-term effects of what the harm that can do. So when you're transitioning someone, let's say who's a vegan, obviously they're very fat. They're very fat low. Their carbohydrates are usually quite high, especially if they come from, let's say, a fruitarian. But you just want to slowly adjust them, no matter where they're coming from. Even if someone's a keto, like the fat and carbohydrate adjustment is quicker, but you might experience some things like oxalate dumping, because a lot of the keto foods have a lot of oxalates in them. So I could go on and on about specific things, but transition them slowly is like your best bet for sure.
Got it. Okay. Those are really good examples. And that brings me to a question I should have asked you earlier. Did you have oxalate dumping?
Um, I didn't personally, but I did train clients who did. And there's a couple of quick fixes you can do with that. And so, or a good way to test it is, if you assume someone does have oxalate dumping going on, because who's to say that that's what it is? A good test for that would be reintroduce an oxalate food and see if the symptoms go away. So that's a good quick fix. I didn't have oxalate dumping, probably because like I failed so many times. My transition was end up being slow, so I slowly had that. I slowly adjusted because of all the failures I had. Probably about like a couple dozen. A good way to see if someone has a histamine intolerance would be to get them to have an antihistamine and see if the problem subsides. Histamine intolerance is like the most extreme issue that you will have, because it takes a lot of healing. It takes a couple months to heal that for sure.
How prevalent is that? Is that quite prevalent?
It depends. Like there's a couple signs that someone could have it. It's very rare, but let's say if they have something like mast cell um, disorder, or if they're around a lot of technology, or if they've been exposed to mold, those are things to kind of look out for. I like to focus on those people, because what I found is when I was coaching people, there was this percentage or small group of people that were suffering, and they were being called like idiots, or they're not doing the diet properly, but they were really suffering, and they had no answers. So I think it's good to have histamine intolerance awareness, just to show that if carnivore is not working for you, there could be a reason, and it could be histamine intolerance.
Got it. Okay, awesome. That's really good advice. Tell us about the transition off of fiber. Most everybody knows that fiber is the best thing for your digestion. It helps with the microbiome, which we know everything about, or seem to know everything about. We actually know very, very little about it.
Yeah.
Netflix documentaries come out, and everybody just kind of generically says like the more diversity you have, the better. The fiber feeds the microbiome. Like, tell us about the transition off of a high fiber to maybe a moderate fiber to then eventually like a zero fiber diet, and how that works as digestively for most people.
Yeah, fiber is an interesting one. You got to think that that's a great point. You are adjusting so many things. You're adjusting your fiber, you're adjusting your carbohydrates, you're adjusting your oxalates. There's so many different things happening. And so same thing with fiber. It's best to slowly remove fiber. The point about microbiome is that your microbiome will thrive on whatever environment you give it. If you give it fiber, it's going to use the fiber. You give it fat, it's going to use the fat. If you give it pure glucose, the microbiome is going to thrive. Like it's a survival mechanism. We are humans. We are amazing creatures. We survived many different many different historical events. Ice ages or heat ages or whatever. But the fiber is one that you do want to adjust slowly. And just remember, it is contraindicated. It's going. That's a shout out to Eddie. That's a great book if you ever want a great book. Contraindicated by Eddie Goki. But you don't need it. But it's best to remove it slowly. But here's something I want to say: if someone is having issues by removing fiber too quickly, and they're having trouble with their bowel movements, I think it could be useful to supplement with a little bit of psyllium husk if their body isn't used to having proper bowel movements. The psyllium husk, just a little bit with lots of water, will help the stool release. But again, it's going to be a temporary thing. It's not something to stay on forever.
Got it. Okay, excellent. This is another one that you've already mentioned. Brad, in particular, was having issues with this initially, and he came out of it pretty quickly, which has been my experience as well. Once it's in your field of consciousness and you deal with it, it's usually a pretty quick fix. But tell us about electrolytes. What does it look like? What is the reason, first of all, I guess, that somebody would have some type of electrolyte imbalance when they transition onto this diet, and what is an easy remedy?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's funny. People will say carnivores not the proper diet because why do you need electrolytes? We have to remember, look at the water we're drinking. Like, where does it come from? Like, it's filtered, it's been chlorinated. We're not getting all the minerals we used to get. Our water is very filtered. We're not getting the dirt. We're not getting on the animal. We're not getting the blood as much. We're missing a lot on those things. As another coach, someone in our program, Coach Jonathan from Norse Carnivore, he would know a lot about that for sure. So another reason why you need electrolytes on the carnivore diet is, carbohydrates. Your carbs help your body retain a lot of the minerals. Another thing that's not happening is you're not having as many insulin responses as if you were having carbohydrates. So when you have an insulin response, your body actually retains a lot more minerals. So one way to kind of counter that is on the carnivore diet is during that transition time, if you have one high protein meal a day, that's usually enough of an insulin response to help your body retain more minerals. But again, when you're not used to having that much protein in one sitting, your body, you kind of need the electrolytes during that time because one big meal a day is not something you're used to yet. So if you're not having that insulin response once a day with a high protein meal, electrolytes would be helpful for sure.
Got it. Okay. I am fortunate that along one of my driving routes, basically once a week, I pass by, it's not exactly spring water, I wouldn't say, but I do pass by an artesian well, and I can get my
Yes.
water from the artesian well, and I just try to stock up when I can. And I can tell you, man, it's not just like the taste of it, but it sounds weird, but like the viscosity of the water is so different. It feels thicker, like it has a mouth feel. And I realize like the difference between when I get my water from this artisanal well versus getting it from my fridge. The water from the fridge, it tastes, no other way to say it, like really thin or just like flat or kind of dead, where this other water at the very least feels like vibrant and thick. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, yeah, we were getting water that ran through rock sometimes for hundreds or thousands of years, and we're gathering all those minerals and how essential that is and why that's, kind of missing these days.
Yeah, one of the first people that I learned that from was familiar with Paul Chek.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I did his program years ago, and he said one thing where it's good to add body to your water. He said, but add some body or fullness, and I was like, that's strange. And then I added some salt to it. I was like, oh, I see what you mean. It's like it's thick, it's thicker. There's more
Totally.
life to it for sure.
Totally. Dude, that dude, Paul Check, has been calling balls and strikes for like decades now. All the weird stuff that, yeah, we would have heard 2 decades ago. Like, what are you talking about? It's like the more time goes on, it's like, oh yeah, Paul Check was right. We should have listened to him all along.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. It's like, yeah, he's one of the first ones to actually exercise with the Swiss ball on the exercise ball. Also one of the first people to, like, in the fitness space, to teach about the core, about how the core isn't just your abdominal wall, it's all over. It's your obliques and your rectus spinae. So all that good stuff for sure.
Yeah.
I love his teaching. We share different opinions on food, and that's okay. I'd be happy to discuss that with him.
Hey, I think he's a regular listener of our show. So if you're out there, Paul, just write us in and we'll hook you guys up. So on the note of the electrolytes, is there specific things people need to know, or is it as simple as make sure your food is salted well, throw some salt in your water? Do you need to add things like magnesium or calcium or the other electrolytes? Like, is there any nuance to this, or is it very simple as far as like just throw salt in a bunch of stuff and make sure you're not experiencing cramps, lightheadedness, you've got good circulation, that kind of thing?
Oh man, my head's spinning because I'm like, we could do a whole podcast on just salt and
Totally.
electrolytes. But I'll give you some basic advice. Okay, so the more water you drink, the more electrolytes you will need, because you could actually overhydrate and you could flush out a lot of these electrolytes. A good quality salt, some people say salt to taste, and some good salts are like, like the Celtic salt or even the Redmond salt. But even if I say those things, people say it's not 100% pure. Do what you can. But yeah, the extra things, like the more specific minerals, like let's say magnesium, potassium, calcium. I've used magnesium citrate specifically for clients who've had some bowel issues, like if they can't go to the washroom, like magnesium citrate specifically. So if you're having some issues using the bathroom, you could use that, kind of help release everything that's going on there. You want to be careful to supplement specifically with potassium because, you might know this. It's actually what potassium is what they use to actually stop the heart during surgery. So it is vital you don't. The reason why I like electrolytes is because it's a good balance of these things. It's got like a good balance of potassium, magnesium, all those things. So it's easier to supplement that way. But for most people, salt to taste will be good with a good quality salt. And if you are somewhere warm, let's say in the desert, you want to make sure you're getting a lot of those minerals. You might need a supplement depending on how you're feeling. I'm trying to do the Coles Notes version here, but that's all I'll say about salt and electrolytes.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I agree 100%. In my experience, if you can get the salt right, all the others tend to kind of take care of themselves, with a few exceptions. Maybe, like you said, specific targeted supplementation for certain people for certain reasons might be warranted. But yeah, I really love that approach. Are there any other really common pitfalls you see with people doing carnivore diet that you end up having to, help and correct?
Yeah, so many. But if I would say the most common one would be people just go into it too fast. And here's what I see a lot. I love Ken Berry's teachings. I like a lot of the mainstream teachers. Um, However, a lot of the teachings work over the long term. It's like, okay, we'll eat till you're full and then stop eating. But when someone has such a large history, and they don't go into details because they are speaking to so many people, but I want to talk to like the smaller group of people, that if you have a large history of improper eating, it's good to do some tracking. And it's good to track about, your protein, your fat, your carbohydrates. And one reason is, if you're not feeling great, you have something to look at. You have something measured. And I have a saying, what gets measured gets managed. All right. So you can actually look at something and be like, hey, what might be happening? So that way, when the client comes to me, they're like, Peter, I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling that way. I could look at the macros. All I need is your macros. If I could see your fat, protein, and carbohydrates, and I can know exactly what, I shouldn't say exactly, but I could usually see what might be happening. So if someone's energy isn't great, their fat might be a little low. If they're not holding on to much muscle, it's rare that people aren't getting enough protein, because if they're meat based. If they're carbohydrates, they might remove it too fast. Those are the main things. But the biggest struggle I find that people suffer, it is the social aspect. And that's why if you watch the interview with the Butcher Wizard, him as a parent, that social aspect is important. So giving your clients ideas of like recipes, fun stuff you could do with the kids. I with the girls and I, we made a nice creme brulee the other night, which was just like whipping cream and egg yolks, I think, and it was delicious. We added a little bit of vanilla. It was great, but making carnivore fun at the beginning, I think, is important. If you can get your clients past that 90 days, and friggin' Brad wouldn't commit to more than 30 days, little bugger. Maybe he will next time. But if you can commit them to at least 30 to 90 days, they see the benefit and then they're like, okay, this is it. I'm going to stick to it long term. But it's really that first 3 months if you can get them past that hump. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Casey.
I was just thinking that. So Brad asked me the same question when I hosted him. He asked me if 30 days was long enough. And I told him that functionally, I didn't see it as a big deal because most of the people that I coach, once they hit 30 days, they want to continue on day 31. And so I was a little bit surprised that Brad, kind of said like, okay, I did the 30 days. I'm good. I'm going to go back to eating some other things. And you asked him about that. And so for him, maybe it would have been better to say like, no, we really do want you to commit to this for the 90 days. I told him like it really doesn't matter because 30 days is normally enough for somebody to say like, wow, I feel amazing. I want to keep going with this. So that's an interesting question and a really good point you made is maybe we should say it should be closer to the 3 month mark to get people like fully through the transitional period and really seeing the amazing results.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, because another reason why, like you might see in my Facebook groups, like we have one with 140,000 people on it for beginners. We have another one, the world's largest one that you mentioned at the beginning. We have about 517,000 people on it. And what I see a lot, because there's lots of interaction there, I'll get these people in these groups and they'll say things like, I've only lost 2 pounds. I'm going to quit. And if I could give any piece of advice, and maybe you'd agree, maybe you don't, but don't weigh yourself more than once a month. It would be ideal. If you weigh yourself more than once a week, I'm going to slap you. But like, really don't do that. But people get so fixated on the scale, but you have to remember there's going to be ups and downs. Your body is totally changing. So that's one of the common setbacks I do see people do is they focus on the scale and not on their healing. And
Yep.
even you'll like it's so funny how some of these people will say, hey, I feel better, my depression's gone and my inflammation's gone and my pants are fitting, but I've only lost 3 pounds. I'm like, are you seriously thinking about that?
Totally. And I wouldn't keep bringing him up except for he's been so public about his journey. But Brad was a great example of that. He did weigh weekly, and in the first week of carnivore, he gained 2 pounds. But again, he's documenting all of this on video, and you can see like he looks different week to week to week. You see an actual difference, and so I think that's great advice to stay off the scale because you may be healing all kinds of stuff and adding lean mass, not just muscle. Like there's bone density and connective tissue and water and all these other things that contribute to your gravity on planet Earth that may or may not really matter that much to most people.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm glad we did document that because you can see in my coaching, the person really has to decide for themselves, right? And I think you probably did see that. It's like I didn't tell them to do more. I just like give hints and guidance. And as a coach, you can't force anyone to do anything. They really have to be ready themselves. All you can be is there when they need you, kind of like as a good parent would be. And you just do the best that you can. But and I'm sure you've been coaching people for a long time as well. You can't help everybody. There's some people that they've made up their mind of what they're going to do. And so because our relationship, Brad would be one example or many others, because you keep a good, healthy relationship with that person, that's more important because when they're ready to do it again, and it's happened many times. I'm sure people have come back to you several times. They're like, "Okay, I'm ready to go again. I'm ready to try it again." So your relationship with your clients is more important than you telling them what to do, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's why we're having this conversation now. Like watching you doing the coaching. It was such a great example of how gentle you were, like asking leading questions and having him answer, and he decides it wasn't you, but you helped him along. You gave him some information. Some of that stuff was stuff he already knew anyway, and like yeah, he was able to have the agency to be able to do whatever he wanted. And so I really appreciated that, and that's a great segue into how you changed your focus from the micro level and coaching an individual to coaching other coaches on the macro level. What was it like to decide that you wanted to create your own kind of certification and work on, helping other potential carnivore coaches out there?
Yeah, so yeah, that's a really exciting conversation. So when I was coaching people, I saw the need for coaches, and to be honest, I got so busy. And I tell people this, I to this day, I still have dozens of messages in my inbox of people who wanted to hire me, and I didn't even have time to get to them. I saw the need for coaches, but at the same time, I saw that there was a lot of coaches not training their clients properly. They were getting them to do it too fast. They weren't very knowledgeable. And this isn't just in carnivore. There's a lot of this in the health space. Like people just coach people how they like to be coached. This is a very common thing. It's like do these exercises because they worked for me, you know. And that's a very common thing in any coaching. It's like this is how I lost 40 pounds. I'm going to teach you the same way. But the reality is, when you're coaching people, it is incredibly humbling because what worked for you is not going to work for the next person. Unfortunately, I'm not very bright, so I couldn't do it alone. And so that's when I got a good team together of brilliant minds. One of them being Eddie Goki, has an incredible mind of a lot of the science background. He's one of my greatest resources. I had a salesperson come on teaching our coaches how to do the sales and how to do the calls. And people like Dr. Sarah Zaldivar. We have Dr. Anker coming on about teaching the coaches how to read these scientific articles. We have Dr. Abs going more into the biochemistry. He's from India and he's living in the UK. So although I have a lot of experience coaching people, I did need the help to get more deep in the science. So that's in the whole exciting journey for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. We do have a large contingent of people that follow our show and, find their healing through carnivore, and they do get very excited and interested in how they're going to share their message, whether they, start a Facebook group, whether they start a YouTube channel, whether they do a podcast, whether they do individual coaching. Like we have a lot of people that listen that would be interested in that. What is the process like if somebody wants to either apply for the coaching or go through the process? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's good. There are other carnivore coaching programs out there, you know, and I've seen them. But what makes ours different is we have a very high standard. So we interview you before we bring you on because you'll be representing us. So if someone is excited about carnivore and they want to be a coach, you can contact us through the website and you can apply. We do a call. And really, we just have two requirements. And I think they're very basic requirements, but you'd be surprised how many people we've said you can't join. But the only two requirements are a willingness to learn, that even though I might be experienced, we're always learning. There's more research coming out, there's more studies, there's more experience, and a willingness to help other people. If you come in just to want to make money, or if you come in that you think that you know it all, this isn't the program for you. If you do join us, we have tons of resources. So we teach you the science of everything. We teach you how to transition your clients. We teach you how to actually sell and actually connect with potential customers and clients. We teach you about recipes. We have Courtney and Luna helped us with some recipes in the program, tons of things. But not only that, because that's part of it, and that's only half of it. As a carnivore coach, it's very lonely out here, and we are going against the mainstream. So we connect you with all the other coaches and all the other people in the space. So for support. So if you're coaching someone and you're stuck, a client might be losing their hair, they might have a fat loss stall, they might have a histamine intolerance. You have a community of other coaches to be there and support you. So you have lifetime access. And also we have the resources to connect you with potential clients. So we have these Facebook groups, and if you want to be certified, I mark you as an expert in these groups, so that if you are connecting with people in these and they're not little groups, there's thousands of people. If you connect with someone, you are marked as an expert because you've gone through the course, you've graduated. But does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Right.
No, that's such a valuable resource. And doing this as long as you and I have, I've been in this industry almost 2 decades as well. And like, we do this for the money, right? We do this because it puts bread on the table. If we wanted to really make some money, we probably would have gone into like medical device sales or something you see a lot of personal trainers transitioning into. But it is, I can just say, like, doing this kind of coaching and doing this work and meeting people all over the world is so incredibly gratifying. It's the same as like what you said, like the passion to get up out of bed and go help people is absolutely amazing. So anybody out there who's listening or watching, if you're thinking about this, I would highly encourage you to take some of those steps and reach out and see what the process is like, because man, it's like I said, just so incredibly gratifying, and it's cool that you're making that accessible for people. And yeah, man, I'm so glad I was able to find you through Brad's transition onto Carnivore, and just see that the excellent knowledge that you have and the gentle way that you were able to coach him and help him along. And I'm sure he'll be back for more information in the future, and hopefully he'll do a longer time next time and really see some more benefits. But this has been an awesome conversation. Like I said, I'm so glad I've gotten to know you through that in particular. Where can people go to find you and connect with you and your work?
Yeah, if you want to include my website in the show notes,
yeah, of course.
Carnivore, great. CarnivoreCoachInternational.com. But if you're not interested in the course, that's great too. I would love to just connect with you on the social media. So I'm Carnivore Coach Peter on Instagram. And my Facebook is really confusing. Are you ready? I'm going to tell you my Facebook name. It's Peter Carnivore. I know that will be really hard to remember for everybody.
Slow down.
Peter, that's C-A-R. How do you spell carnivore? I think there's an N.
There you go.
But yeah, we have a great community. We have coaches from all over the world, on every continent, even Antarctica. We have coaches in Asia, Australia, UK, Europe, Canada, US. So we have a great group of coaches. Would love to connect you.
It's amazing. That would be good for coaching the penguins in Antarctica, how to be carnivores as well. Awesome. We will link to all of that in the show notes, and I just really appreciate your time. Thank you so very much for your own journey and the way that you had to suffer through some of this stuff to learn it, but now your willingness to share it and not only coach individuals, but coach other coaches so we can spread this message far and wide. So Coach Peter, thank you so very much for everything you do, and thank you for taking time to be on our show today. Really appreciate you.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It was an honor.
Peace and meat.
And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.